There is a country on this planet that has been invaded by every superpower in recorded history. The Greeks tried, the Arabs tried, the Mongols nearly erased it from existence. The British exploited it. The Americans overthrew its government. And yet, after 5,000 years, it is still here. Iran is not just a country. It is the oldest continuous civilization on Earth that still functions as a nation-state. While Rome fell and never returned, while Egypt became a shadow of its former self, while the great empires of China fractured and reformed under entirely new identities, Iran endured. Not by hiding, not by surrendering, but by doing something far more remarkable. Every conqueror who set foot on Persian soil eventually became Persian themselves. Their languages faded, their customs disappeared, but Persian poetry, Persian art, Persian identity, these things absorbed their invaders like water absorbs ink. This is the story of how that happened, and why it matters more today than it has in decades. "2,500 years before the birth of Christ, the Iranian plateau was already home to some of the earliest organized civilizations on Earth. The Elamites built cities in what is now southwestern Iran at the same time the Egyptians were raising their first pyramids. But the story truly begins with one man. In 559 BC, a young prince named Cyrus united the warring tribes of Persia and Media. Within 20 years, he had built the largest empire the world had ever seen. From the edges of Greece to the borders of India, the Achaemenid Empire controlled more territory than any civilization before it. But Cyrus did something no conqueror before him had ever done. He did not enslave the people he conquered. He did not burn their temples. He did not force them to abandon their gods. When Cyrus captured Babylon in 539 BC, he freed the Jewish people from captivity and allowed them to return to Jerusalem and rebuild their temple. This act is recorded in the Hebrew Bible. The Cyrus cylinder, discovered in the ruins of Babylon, is considered by many scholars to be the world's first declaration of human rights. Under Cyrus and his successors, Darius and Xerxes, Persia became a machine of civilization. They built the Royal Road, a highway stretching over 2,000 kilometers from Sardis to Susa, with relay stations that could carry a message across the empire in 7 days. They invented the world's first postal system. They created a tax code, a legal system, and an administrative structure that would be copied by every empire that followed. At its peak, the Achaemenid Empire governed 44% of the world's population. No empire in history has ever matched that proportion. Not Rome, not Britain, not America. And then the Greeks arrived. In 334 BC, Alexander of Macedon crossed into Asia with 40,000 soldiers and a single obsession: to destroy the Persian Empire. He succeeded, militarily at least. At the Battle of Gaugamela, Alexander shattered the Persian army and sent the last Achaemenid king, Darius III, fleeing into the mountains where he was murdered by his own men. Alexander burned Persepolis, the ceremonial capital of the empire. The greatest architectural achievement of the ancient world was reduced to ash in a single night. Some historians say it was revenge for the Persian burning of Athens. Others say Alexander was simply drunk. But here is what the history books often miss. Alexander did not replace Persian culture, he adopted it. He began wearing Persian robes. He married a Persian princess named Roxana. He forced his generals to marry Persian women. He adopted the Persian system of governance, kept Persian administrators in power, and demanded that his Greek soldiers bow before him in the Persian fashion. His men hated him for it. They saw it as betrayal. But Alexander understood something profound. You cannot govern Persia without becoming Persian. When Alexander died at 32, his empire immediately fractured. The Seleucid dynasty that inherited the eastern territories ruled for a time, but within 2 centuries, a new Persian dynasty, the Parthians, had risen from the northeast and reclaimed the plateau. Persia had swallowed its conqueror whole. In the 7th century, the most transformative invasion in Persian history arrived from the Arabian Peninsula. The Sassanid Empire, the last great pre-Islamic Persian dynasty, had ruled for 400 years. They had built magnificent cities, codified Zoroastrianism as the state religion, and fought the Roman and Byzantine empires to a standstill. But by the 630s, the Sassanids were exhausted. Decades of war with Byzantium had drained the treasury. A devastating plague had swept through the population, and when the armies of the new Islamic faith arrived at the borders, the empire cracked. At the Battle of Al-Qadisiyah in 636, the Arab forces defeated the Persian army. By 651, the last Sassanid king was dead, murdered while fleeing east. Persia, for the first time in over 1,000 years, was no longer ruled by Persians. This should have been the end. The Arabs brought a new religion, a new language, and a new political order. Arabic became the language of government, of scripture, of scholarship. Islam replaced Zoroastrianism as the dominant faith. Persian temples were converted into mosques, and yet Persia did not disappear. It did something far more extraordinary. It reshaped Islam itself. Within 2 centuries, Persian scholars had become the backbone of Islamic civilization. The greatest Islamic philosophers, scientists, poets, and theologians were overwhelmingly Persian. Ibn Sina, known in the West as Avicenna, wrote the medical textbooks that European universities used for 600 years. Omar Khayyam calculated the length of the year to a precision not matched until the 20th century. Rumi, whose poetry is the best-selling in the English-speaking world to this day, wrote in Persian. The Persian language did not die. It evolved, absorbed Arabic vocabulary, and re-emerged as one of the great literary languages of the medieval world. The Shahnameh, the Book of Kings, written by Ferdowsi around the year 1000, deliberately purged Arabic words and retold the mythological history of Iran in pure Persian. It was an act of cultural defiance that ensured the Persian identity would never be erased. Even the Persian New Year, Nowruz, survived. 14 centuries after the Arab conquest, Iranians still celebrate it every spring. If any invasion should have destroyed Iran permanently, it was this one. In 1219, Genghis Khan turned his attention west. The Khwarezmian Shah had made a catastrophic error. He had executed Mongol trade envoys, an act Genghis Khan considered an unforgivable insult. What followed was annihilation on a scale the world had rarely witnessed. The Mongols did not simply conquer cities, they erased them. Nishapur, one of the great cities of the Islamic world, was so thoroughly destroyed that the Mongols reportedly built pyramids from the severed heads of its inhabitants. Accounts vary, but credible historians estimate the death toll across the region in the millions. The great libraries of Persia were burned. Irrigation systems that had sustained agriculture for centuries were deliberately wrecked. Entire provinces were depopulated. Some scholars estimate that the population of the Iranian plateau did not recover to its pre-Mongol levels for nearly 500 years. This was not conquest. This was attempted civilizational extinction. And yet, within 3 generations, the Mongol rulers of Persia, the Ilkhanati, had converted to Islam. They had adopted Persian as their court language. They had begun patronizing Persian poets and artists. Rashid al-Din, a Persian Jewish convert who served as the Mongol vizier, compiled the first true world history ever written. The pattern repeated itself with almost supernatural consistency. The conquerors arrived with fire, and Persia turned them into Persians. After centuries of fragmentation and foreign rule, Persia was reborn in 1501. Shah Ismail I, a teenage warrior king, swept across the plateau and established the Safavid dynasty. He did something that would define Iran for the next 5 centuries. He declared Twelver-Shia Islam the official state religion. This was a radical act. The vast majority of the Muslim world was Sunni. By making Iran Shia, the Safavids created a distinct religious identity that separated Persia from its Ottoman and Mughal neighbors. It was a political masterstroke. Religion became the glue that held the new Iranian state together. Under Shah Abbas the Great, who ruled from 1588 to 1629, Persia entered its last golden age. The capital was moved to Isfahan, which became one of the most magnificent cities on earth. European visitors described Isfahan with astonishment. Its bridges, its mosques, its bazaars, and its gardens were compared to the finest cities in Europe. The famous Persian proverb emerged during this era: Isfahan is half the world. The Safavids built a professional standing army, established diplomatic relations with European powers, and turned Persia into a major player in global trade. Persian silk, carpets, and ceramics were prized from London to Beijing. But empires do not last forever. After Shah Abbas, the dynasty declined. Afghan invaders sacked Isfahan in 1722. The Safavid state collapsed, and Persia entered another period of chaos and fragmentation. By the 19th century, Persia found itself trapped between two expanding empires, Britain from the south and Russia from the north. The Great Game, as it was called, was a decades-long struggle for influence across Central and South Asia. Persia was not colonized in the way India was, but it was carved into spheres of influence. The Anglo-Russian Convention of 1907 divided Iran into a Russian zone in the north, a British zone in the south, and a nominally neutral zone in the middle. No one asked Iran. Then, in 1908, everything changed. A British prospector named William Knox Darcy struck oil in Masjid Soliman in southwestern Iran. It was the first major oil discovery in the Middle East. The Anglo-Persian Oil Company was formed, later renamed British Petroleum, BP. The fuel that would power the British Navy through 2 world wars came from Iranian soil. The profits, however, did not go to Iran. For decades, Britain extracted billions in oil revenue while paying Iran a fraction of the proceeds. The terms of the concession were so lopsided that by the 1940s, Britain was earning more from Iranian oil than the Iranian government itself. This injustice planted the seeds of a crisis that would reshape the entire Middle East. In 1951, a democratically elected prime minister named Mohammad Mossadegh did something that terrified the Western world. He nationalized Iran's oil industry. Mossadegh argued correctly that Iranian oil belonged to the Iranian people. He moved to take control of the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company and redirect the profits to fund schools, hospitals, and infrastructure. Britain was furious. They imposed a global embargo on Iranian oil. When that was not enough, they turned to the United States. In August 1953, the CIA and British intelligence, MI6, orchestrated a coup. Operation Ajax, as the Americans called it, overthrew Mossadegh and reinstalled the Shah, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, as an absolute monarch, loyal to Western interests. The Shah ruled for 26 years. He modernized the country at extraordinary speed, building universities, highways, and a powerful military. But he also crushed all political opposition. His secret police, SAVAK, were trained by the CIA and became notorious for torture and surveillance. The coup of 1953 became a wound that never healed. It taught an entire generation of Iranians that democracy would be overthrown whenever it threatened Western oil interests. The resentment that followed would eventually erupt in the most dramatic revolution of the 20th century. By the late 1970s, Iran was a pressure cooker. The Shah had spent lavishly on military hardware while millions of Iranians lived in poverty. The secular middle class resented his authoritarianism. The religious establishment resented his westernization. Students, workers, merchants and clerics, groups that agreed on almost nothing, united behind a single demand: the Shah must go. In January 1979, the Shah fled Iran. He would never return. On the 1st of February, Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini landed in Tehran after 14 years in exile. Millions lined the streets. Within weeks, the Islamic Republic of Iran was declared. The revolution stunned the world. A key American ally in the Middle East had been overthrown not by a military coup, not by a communist insurgency, but by a popular revolution, driven in large part by religious ideology. Nothing like it had happened in the modern era. Then came the hostage crisis. In November 1979, Iranian students stormed the American embassy in Tehran and held 52 diplomats hostage for 404 days. It was a defining moment that severed the relationship between Iran and the United States permanently. Before Iran could stabilize, Saddam Hussein invaded. The Iran-Iraq War lasted 8 years, from 1980 to 1988. It killed an estimated 1 million people. Iraq used chemical weapons. The international community largely looked the other way. Iran fought virtually alone. The war devastated Iran's economy and infrastructure, but it also forged a fierce national identity. Iranians who had been divided by the revolution united against an external enemy. The war became a founding myth of the Islamic Republic, proof in the government's narrative that the world wanted to destroy Iran and that only faith and resistance could save it. Today, Iran exists under some of the most comprehensive economic sanctions ever imposed on a country. Its currency has lost most of its value. Its people face shortages of medicine and basic goods. Its young population, one of the most educated in the Middle East, struggles with unemployment and limited opportunity. And yet, Iran remains a regional power. It has built a network of allied militias and political movements across Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Yemen. Its nuclear program, despite decades of international pressure, has advanced to the point where Western intelligence agencies believe it could produce enough material for a weapon in a matter of weeks, should the political decision be made. Its missile program is one of the most advanced in the region. But perhaps the most remarkable thing about Iran is not its government or its military. It is the persistence of its culture. Persian poetry is still read and recited by millions. The Persian language, Farsi, is spoken by over 100 million people across Iran, Afghanistan and Tajikistan. Iranian cinema has won awards at every major international film festival. Iranian scientists, mathematicians, and engineers contribute to research institutions around the world. 5,000 years of continuous civilization, invaded by the Greeks, the Arabs, the Mongols, the Turks, the British, and undermined by the Americans, besieged by war, revolution, and sanctions, and still here. There is a famous Persian proverb that captures this resilience better than any history book ever could. This too shall pass. The empires came, the empires went, Iran remains.